Hello, my name is Martin Benes, and welcome to my presentation for curriculum and assessment in teaching and learning. This assessment 2 is a blog that introduces and reflects on an innovative assessment tool I developed and implemented in my teaching practice. I thought third year be a fashion student at the University of Bolton, supporting them as they worked on their final major project. We had weekly tutorials. After some time, I noticed that students were not effectively embedding the feedback they received. So from September, I had been conducting regular one-to-one tutorials. However, around the end of October, it became quite clear that many students were continuing with their projects without truly engaging or applying the feedback given. Uh, I believe that this resulted in slow progress and lack of critical reflection. So at this point, it was quite clear that we needed a different kind of assessment, something that would support students in taking more ownership of their learning process. So the tool I have decided to design was a self-assessment form which have students never worked with during their studies. This self-assessment form was designed for my 10 final year fashion students, but could be used in any project-based context of learning. It asks students to reflect on their progress using the modules, learning outcomes, and marking criteria. And as a part of this assessment, students were asked to write a short description of their collections and identify areas they needed to improve. I backed up my innovative assessment tool with theories from Lawrence Stenhouse and Eric Byrne, who shared key ideas that shaped my assessment tool. Both of them promote student importance of student owning uh, uh, their learning. Stenhouse with reflection and self-directed learning, Byrne with adult-to-adult communication and shared responsibility. Then reflection is central to both theories as a tool for growth and deeper understanding, and both authors support respectful two-way interactions between teacher and student. Um, Based on that, I feel encouraged that through my tool, I felt positive that through this tool, students might reflect, take ownership, and engage more actively, which again aligns with both theories. The main goals of this new tool were to increase student self-awareness of the quality and direction of their work, deepen their understanding of the learning outcomes tied to the module, and help them identify specific areas for improvement in line with the marking criteria. In a sense, the tool was designed to make students more active participants in their own development rather than relying solely on their feedback. The form was designed with clarity and alignment in mind. It's something I worked with or I was considering throughout my whole teaching placement as part of my class were SEN students. So I always use tools such as color division in my printed text and in my presentations. I was highlighting text. I make the pages quite simple. Sometimes I use colorful backgrounds. Um, in this assessment tool, students had dedicated sections for reflection, self-marking, and goal setting. Key learning outcomes and assessment bands were always visible to ensure transparency and relevance. There were sections for students to assess the quality of each part of their portfolio, and there were marking tables, so students could score against the criteria and identify. They could also identify their areas for further development. And the final section of my innovative assessment tool was the marking criteria, to reinforce them as we, for a few months before I embedded this assessment tool into my teaching, uh, we didn't really speak about marking criteria or learning outcomes. So it was really good to reinforce them here. I've also evaluated effectiveness of my innovative assessment tool with four main parameters: fairness, validity, reliability, and sufficiency. So with fairness, the positive uh, was the fact that the self-assessment tool was linked to learning outcomes and assessment criteria. What was both positive and negative was that all students received the same form and instructions. Again, in the class there are some SEN students who needed more time when instructing how to work with this assessment tool, which is something I didn't plan. Um, and what was negative in terms of fairness? It was a time constraint. The students didn't have enough time to fill it in, or well, they've been advised they can finish it at home, but I don't believe that any of them actually finish it at home. Some of the students left after 20 minutes of filling it in. I only had a brief check on their self-assessment tools, and with some of them I had one-to-one tutorials, and I went through their self-assessment forms and discussed it with them, which was quite unfair to some of the students who left after 20 minutes. When I came back after Christmas, because this was in December, when I came back after Christmas, some of the students didn't provide me with their self-assessment forms because they claimed they lost them. So I couldn't really analyze every student in the class and figure out some conclusion related to the whole learning in the whole class. Well, another parameter I was using to measure efficiency was validity. A positive here was, again, strong alignment with module learning outcomes. I made assessment criteria more transparent and understandable. Again, it worked like a little reminder of module requirements. What was positive, negative here was that only when students engaged meaningfully, they actually could gain something out of this. Again, there was a limited time, limited motivation, maybe. Then reliability, both positive, negative. Hard to ensure consistency of self-assessment. Students rated themselves differently depending on their confidence levels. Some over, some underestimated their performance. Sufficiency, the positive here was comprehensive coverage of project stages. Again, a little reminder of maybe deliverables for that particular project. Um, and another positive was that it included qualitative and quantitative components. So there was self-scoring parts and reflective parts, more open. And then also they gathered data about their performance, and they were aware of areas of further development. I would say the impact was quite visible. Students began bridging the gap between how they saw their work and how others experienced it. They grew more aware of assessment standards and became better at articulating their design intent. For many, this reflective process, as I said earlier, was entirely new, but I would say it was clearly beneficial. I would highlight one of the positives, one of the positive impacts the assessment tool had. Many students could show their work visually, but struggled to explain what their collection was about in words. That was before this self-assessment tool. After Christmas, four students I spoke to um, actually used their collection description from this self-assessment tool later on, which was really great to see. That was I would say that was the best um, impacts of this tool. Here are some examples of student self-assessment forms. Student one actively engaged with the form. She brought it to tutorials in January and February, used it as a checklist, kept the list of learning outcomes and marking scheme, and used that during our tutorials. And uh, Well, student two, um, in comparison with student one, well, student two had ongoing difficulties across all his assignments. His form responses showed minimal self-awareness. He was using very vague phrases such as this could be developed or I'm struggling with this without analyzing what exactly needs to be improved or without any critical feedback. The student has a cognitive disability, so it could be partially caused by that. I wouldn't say this self-assessment tool was beneficial for this particular student. Uh, Here is some of his self-marking example. He was thinking he is not doing really well, but then even when we discussed what he can improve, how was this self assessment for him? Was it beneficial or not? I don't think he really he he could use this in the future parts of his final collection of this design development. So next time, as I said, I will allow more time. I will maybe do this exercise for 40 minutes. I would definitely collect forms during the session. I would probably introduce this tool earlier in the term and maybe more frequently. I would maybe consider providing a digital version of the tool for easier submission. I would revisit and follow up tutorials to close the feedback loop. I would do that with everyone as I only did that with few students, but yeah, next time I would definitely involve everyone. Then I would embed learning outcomes more clearly in tutorials. That's something I started to do after the self-assessment session. And I would consider adding a peer assessment component. That's something I actually tested maybe 4 months after this session, and it was quite beneficial. I would say it was because that students felt a peer pressure, so actually all of them completed their peer assessment session, which was great to see. Thank you for watching. That's the end of my presentation on the development and impact of my innovative self-assessment tool. Thank you. Bye.